All right, who's the one I say?
Should be 1AC size.
Alright, take games.
Alright, are you all good? 1 second.
Okay.
Alright. Okay.
Door's probably not going to stay closed. People are going in.
Okay. Fronteras Compromisos is a non-governmental organization established in 2001 to provide life-saving water to migrants crossing the U.S.-Mexico border. Waters 3. In the late 1990s, U.S. Border Patrol came down on towns along the border, forcing migrants to take their chances in border areas. Sometimes on the border crossing without dehydration, taking desperately to the water for losing oxygen, taking empty coastal will take, making the blue attaching process, running on the go outside these circles, oasis, through some activities. The U.S. won't try to convince wildlife service to allow humane borders, raise water season after 40 migrants site in the refuge. With dehydration, the group has granted permission since then to Hoover's virtual league to regulate migration policies, condemn border patrol, humane borders, abuse, and producing results. The border patrol acknowledged that for saving lives, the border patrol is losing the PR war. Hoover appeared at the BCC and the New York Times in this operation. Dropping into the deeper issue policy will change. The problem is The promise of democracy comes that we make the future this view. The promise of democracy comes is the one that we make the future. The form that this promise takes is the constant reaffirmation and criticism of actually existing democracies which are due to reinforce violence against migrants, for which to democracy must be hard to come all the issues of violence, self-defense, just can never be fully captured by fair reality. Democracy's promise is reason and the clause of perfectibilities and guard and conscious democracy myths is considered incompletely still for a full present. Deconstruction without democracy and no democracy that deconstruction, no one criticizes democracy, one does so. The name of democracy to come, but the future to come, but also the democratic structure of the appeal for singularity and harmony. The universal traditional family must take out of split modern democracy, the link between self-deconstruction and democracy can be described. Focus on the contention of admitted openness of the democratic political field. The subject of the Western state of committed democracy, the concept and practice of imperatives we can only reaffirm by choosing difference, right? This choosing necessarily undertaken into a differential repetition there thus concept of democracy selectively. There is those features in our apathy transformed the debate community into a weak public sphere capable of public policy through preventative foresight. We are the concerned citizenry that shapes public discussion on the plight of migrants. Kurosawa for the lines of political literature reading ground along competing dystopian vision line passes out of the recur is unbearable in the suffering of the generation cautiously tolerated in our survival being irresponsibly jeopardized the dystopian emasculate and enable a new form of transnational social political action and manifestation of globalization from below. Preventative foresight underpinned by the dialogues and public listening transnational and sympathetic foresight distinction of backup team warriors of access work of farsightedness rather than effectiveness from public debate inequalities the distinct accounts for occasionally overlapping constituencies they're coalescing around the struggles of white specific global catastrophe to fight political direct decision making past global oriented cyclical association becomes significant actors among developed debate formation groups are alerting to the truth about looming catastrophes as well as fostering public participation debates on the future that brings the transformational great character preventive foresight individuals and problem parts of the prolet are being brought together in a risk community there is a global geographic board and knowledge of impending catastrophe and instantaneous to reach the four corners of the earth facilitation engaging and the global action and contributing creation of a fledgling global society from below the official architecture international relation preventive foresight and the foresight actions decision to participating in the circulation of flows of information promoting and fields of foresight and council of homeless and informing mobilizing weak models debating the Starling's potential possible catastrophe state the international organization of incompetent to condemn fully the globally minded citizens society actors have been instrumental in listen to the different opposed political issues that prevent the global crisis to eventually build the assertion of the short-term narrowly defined rationale to be public source begin by convincing or compelling official representatives to act differently.
Do y'all consider yourselves immigrants?
I don't think so. Not myself.
Okay.
I do not.
How do you like self-identify? Do you self-identify? Do y'all self-identify as white?
That's not the basis of the 1AC.
I never asked what was the basis of the 1AC. I just asked a question.
I can't speak for that.
I personally happen to self-identify as white.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about you?
As well.
Also, what made you finally want to answer now that you're like partner answer? What made you like finally feel okay to answer now that you're like partner answer?
I just wanted to know what Lev thought. I don't want to speak for Lev in terms of.
Like you said, you didn't feel safe disclosing how you.
No,
like,
I never made a
I didn't say
about my own feeling.
I didn't say how does Lev identify. I said how do you self-identify? That's yourself.
Alright, and I answered your question.
We like to have a consistent message about it.
All right. What does it mean to transform the debate community into a weak public sphere?
So what Kurosawa describes the weak public sphere is a group of concerned citizens who identify a particular issue, i.e. the plight of migrants, and propose a specific policy alternative.
Okay, if you've never experienced what it means to be an immigrant, how can you assume that your action is actually good for that immigrant?
I mean, I think it's not a particular. We read evidence from the organization that we.
Yes. But my question, more or less, is if you've never lived or experienced an immigrant life, how is your actions for the immigrant an action that an immigrant actually wants?
I think that it's the organization identified the problem, i.e. immigrants dying in the desert, and proposed a solution. We identified the
So if you're really a concerned student, instead of just saying that you're going to do it, i.e. reading a 1AC in the debate community, why did you not actually go out and try to actually
Kurosawa's description of a weak public sphere is one that proposes a specific option for organization.
Well, clearly it's already been proposed because you're reading evidence from someone that proposed it. Why is there not an action that has been taken?
Yeah, I actually have some thoughts. The individual Hoover who founded this organization is in day-to-day contact with lots of migrants crossing the border, which means that he has a...
Well, I'm not really interested in what you're saying right now. I'm really interested in knowing it's already injected. Wait, how can you answer the question if I didn't ask the question? I want to know that since this has already been injected in the public sphere, why are you not actually acting upon it rather instead of reading that it's a good idea?
One, I don't think that you can make a claim as to what we do outside of debate. Two, we've just defended that introducing this in debate is an
do you go outside of debate? Do you actually go and advocate for these immigrants to have water?
I can take that one. I'm not sure.
No, I don't want you to. She can answer her own question.
We do not live in
near the border. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to you.
Alright, I think that it's fair for Love to answer.
Well, I don't think that it's fair for him to have to answer all of your questions. I feel like you're bright enough to answer your own questions. Have you done anything? And he can't answer a question about what you do. Have you done anything outside of debate?
I think that what Love was getting to is it's because particularly putting water stations in the desert is
have you done anything though?
Given our geographical location.
Have you done anything?
What I mean.
I have done anything this campaign.
I wasn't talking to you.
Okay. I am flashing the one. It's going to be 2 off in case.
You want to stand this up?
Can you stand up?
Every time.
Hey, do you want to borrow our stuff?
Yeah, that'd be easier than like. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks. Wait, what is it, bro?
1NC Civic versus Polytechnic.
Okay.
Awesome, thank you. It's spelled 1NC semis K. Is that the right document?
Semi versus Polytechnic.
Okay, the only thing on here is 1NC semis K.
Okay, let me do that again. Alright, it should be on there now.
Still the only thing on there. There's a document called WRT0005TMP.
I doubt it. We're gonna try this one. Maybe you like put it up.
Can I hand this one back to you?
Yes.
But do you have our question?
They're using the region.
I have another one.
Oh, perfect.
Here you go.
Where is it?
Do you have a particular preference on which one of these goes to?
Drinking water, flaming water, the restaurant.
Gotcha.
Okay.
All lined up.
You might want to date modify.
It's on there, right?
I got it.
Got it? Okay, cool. What's the right birthday?
2 off case.
How's that gonna get retired?
Alright, we're good?
No, I don't think she's just one up here.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay, we are both good.
Can I have that back?
Oh, yeah.
Sorry about that.
Thank you. Sorry.
There is no such thing as unconditional hospitality. The 1NC access to the world is something that can be fixed with a quick band-aid. In doing so, they ignore the blatant hypocrisy of the USA as political resistance of black men and centerpiece of American politics. Above all, 13 cultures deeply influenced the anti-black rights affairs and continue to reveal the stereotypes of African Americans, the less hardworking left, and telling the white political resentments of black men and centerpiece of American politics and black psychology experiments show black and indigenous times the images of violent endanger, racial bias all around, where it's not as often covered to why the treatment was legitimate. Stopping for policing in New York is frequently playing that situation, teaching the misunderstanding of the quiet mass major and police defeating aggressive trade injuries in the lives of black and Hispanic youth. Racism is still distorting American life. The legacy of past and direct that blacks in the United States more like a facility that we have failed to destroy life, gender retain fast, to generate new disease for which we have no certainty. Now, this submission was not accidental. It's nothing new. Black life is not worth as much as any other life. This debate unhealthy, radical, preaching for resistance that was foreclosed by the one is glorification of America, the world's largest purveyor, white supremacy. Goldberg 714, black life is not worth as any other life. Black death is not more like any other death. It's a fact and celebrate for those who consider retaining commitments to the American democracy and justice system, who are deeply interested in the white supremacy. In order for the American side to continue, black as much as we contain the host buried its mind must be ghettoized, locked up, and killed. We can't do anything if you don't want to change the system. You're not being cautious or care for or monitoring. You're being actively oppressive because the system that currently exists is unjust. The status quo morally unacceptable to call for the whole to overhaul the system, to call for the continuing of the president is acting. So what we can do to act for resistance, we must never forget our purpose everywhere. The potential for performance for resistance by pessimism is not a resignation in America. Initially put upon the ideology of white supremacy, anti-black, one of the fundamental principles of I retain a commitment toward working towards a justice that is not yet existing. Expanding the inclusionary circle of civil society can never include blackness because it's founded on the concept of distinction to their humanism is worse from the murder of the slave. Waters in 2010 discourse that elaborates just the justification of the freedom of slaves, not the product of human being setting happening miraculously. Recognize the slave, the emancipatory discourse that presents the further evidence of slave and political discourse predicated on the grammars. Also, we constitute element our expectation, alienation, late midway to rights and ontological canon, the ensemble of that common existential concern which made and continue to make possible both war and peace of human was born, but not before it murdered the black foraging symbiosis to the political ontology of humanity, the social death of black, more political imagination of society, think about the responsibility of enslavement, the less logical the condition of slave become the political discourse recognizes freedom of the structure ontological words to do all this recognition by imaginary freedom gratuitous. Freedom have never been a trajectory of human assault, but just by infinite trajectory, the freedom that emanates from human power, anything but emanating down to violence that the 1AC solved for can never account for black bodies. The 1AC can see the inability that black bodies have to be a part of the decision making of the 1AC politics. Anti-5. The relation between black and being probably not considered algorithms on the state of being is the belief in impossible plurality and to be black, to be born an obstacle to being black, negates the acts of existence within the framework of the white imaginary. To be black and human are contradictory. White being imprisoned within a space of white ethical solutions, and whites include possibility of developing new forms of ethical rationality, evading hegemonic discourse that whites might erase and outweigh other whiteness is reproduce the specific discrete material process of desire and power. And thus the act must be rejected in the act of burning down the structure of hierarchy that produces violence against the slave. Freedom is an illusion created by the shock of the civil society. And the abandoning the pursuit for equality is the only way to break down the way whiteness maintains itself. This is not a critique of the message of the 1AC, but the style of the 1AC. The style of the 1AC continues the same regurgitation of knowledge as opposed to the production of knowledge. Only our negation opens up the door to new forms of knowledge production than to new stuff to be read Brinkley 12. There's black literature being produced every moment of the day. There's a whole area of life discussion with the facts with relevant information that might be useful to when people say that they don't think about what performance movement is doing it intellectual because they have already decided that they are anti-intellectual, where they are very much so intellectual. As a matter of fact, it is one of the few debaters that could produce scholarship rather than regurgitating our very favorite reference on how we engage in debate, the regurgitation of our information rather than the production of it. And the reason is because we have made it isolated and solicited game where the people actually are really interested in knowledge production who don't necessarily see their relationships. So rather than saying that you can have a claim to decide what to do for democracy, this is defined. The USG has already defined it as in get. Also, you have to find a solvency avenue for whatever you are going to change. I think that we should be producing new arguments. So rather than having a solvency avenue, you have the evidence courses change your part of argument, just like writing an academic paper. Just that would change our very way to think about the game being applied and what potential connection is to both the economy and also to politics. We created a new space for research teams who want to talk about anti-blackness or teams that want to talk about defining nature of gender and how we engage in policy next. Flow. First interpretation, white people should have to disclose their act to non-white people, particularly for black people in debate. Second is violation of the affirmative to not disclose their act to UPrep. EK33, this is whiteness. 8 practices are how whiteness reiterates the whiteness is the background to your experience that create the work governing what somebody can do while other bodies are put under stress. Ahmed 2007, we can get stuck in this easily caught up and describe what we're doing to white rather than what whiteness and new whiteness. Just because the category that this is superior makes whiteness world over whiteness to describe the very of what coexistence where whiteness can become the effective reunification. Whiteness is going to be described the ongoing unfinished with the orient. His body is specifically affecting how people take up whiteness to the effect of and whiteness is real material living up. B, whiteness operates and be right remaining unmarked. We have to challenge the invisibility of whiteness, otherwise it will fall back into the space. Silence mass whiteness. We're in fast forward. Performing better than the point to machinery of whiteness can put flesh in series. The concept of the whiteness can serve the whiteness perceived as name. The norm in the same way can act in the position of power to us own body, exceeded by the main thing, having others, the mode of performance of form. Whiteness will function to dominate script, the unrest into cultural power performed of pedagogy can question the normal, stable, never action, this of race in order to foreground engagement constitute a perform to create a space for students to wake up and take part of whiteness and thereby to make consider already. Now 4 is the independent voter for whiteness. 5 is key to good performing debate. We trust that the act has good intentions if they wanted to have us or a real debate without now. They should have told us what it was so we could prepare for one thing we pride ourselves on is always trying to come up with good negative strategies. Good negative strategies are key to performance debate, right? All this community already thinks that performance debate is a joke because we always want to flip out and we can't go next. 6 is and performance debate tends towards black people. Performance debate or get black in the process of black debate. 7 is voter for ethics. White people have to give shit up. They really care about being anti-race or making this a good place for minority debate. At least you can give the right to non-discrimination. 8 is bad for black debate because black debate has humor going to be made acceptable in the debate. RDP. RL proves we design topics that are anti-black. Black debate that has constantly challenged the forces of white which pose it. That's why I'm going to the case debate. When one is white, their identity is linked to the history of white oppression and hegemony. One cannot simply denounce their whiteness in some form. Their white must have their social position, their relation of domination, their comfort, and even their being destroyed. Not to create whiteness itself, the political term that emerged both in the European white in the U.S. and in short, anyone who claims to be white, even a white anti-racist, and identifying with the history of European imperialism, racism, transported and further developing to that does not mean that white people who go around saying dumb things like I'm not white, I'm a human being, or I love whiteness and join the human race, or my favorite, I hate white people, they're stupid, or structurally white. Don't tell me that you are not white, but when you go around to the street and the people still bother you or ask you if you're a prostitute or if people don't follow you and touch you and act that would not make a difference. White people need to be telling white people need to be willing to have their very social location, their very relational domination, their very authority, their very being let go. I'm not interested in making white people, even though so-called good, hard, and anti-racist, and comfortable about their position in the struggle, the shape of life, and would never shape their. Now, whiteness needs to die. The social structure and all white people who want to work in the interests of colored people should submit their entire self to the women, the interests of people of color with no question to ask, no rewards, never to make the first ground way to what whiteness needs to die. The social structure and identity or yourself in the anti-racist work. Don't call us. We'll call you if we need your reason. We'll contact you. Don't get angry when we resent the fact that you have so many reasons and we don't. And we're not ready for the inspiration. I really do not know how white people can be helpful to non-whites to clearly think that. Don't ever say to tell me about how you feel silenced, marginalized, discriminated against, and put in your place. Start thinking about what this means in terms of the actual structure of the social race before whiteness and white identity, the white anti-racist hypothesis not every reform white identity to be. Be sure I want to say that anyone who thinks that it's too academic or too abstract, I write as a non-white person, meaning that from my personal experience, I experienced white supremacy. And I also draw from my understanding from the white supremacy from non-white people in many engagements of the period. Struggle to ask them, but I'm also important to speak out and say I did not get accolades for 2 hours. Instead, they experienced confidence in their life for existing and just doing the work that they did. Now, claiming to be white is an assertion of violent power. Whiteness is not a skin tone or a culture, but rather a social position of uncritical violence. Like it must be abolished, not it must be ignorative. 97. We have reached the general that I'm associated with have access to experience white to continue positive elements to indicate what they are. We're still waiting for an answer until we'll stand up against the behavior who has insisted that whiteness is not really oppressive and falsehood is not nothing oppressive and falsehood. Jim Baldwin says, as long as you think you're white, there's no hope for you. I'll mark at you.
Alright, so the non-per evidence on case, like,
which one?
The general claim of that evidence.
Right.
What should Lev and I be doing to amend that, or what should the judges be doing? Like,
right, the non-per evidence talks about if you're really about your anti-racism works or trying to help the others, like you find people in Mexico who we should be helping. We're saying that you submit to the people of color. We should call you. You should not be calling us.
So what does that mean that Lev and I should be doing within debate? Or bigger question.
I think the answer is no one asked you to do anything.
Right.
That's where you.
So
land.
That's kind of where Ray Vaughn was getting the process of what he's saying.
I guess I'm curious about that answer because Hoover, the individual who founded Fronteras Sin Pasivas, was asked to do so by migrants who were starving.
But the migrants that are starving never asked you to come inside the debate community and read a 1AC that says that you help them.
They would probably benefit a lot more if you had actually done something or they had talked to you first.
Alright, so the framework card on the K from Dr. Reed Brinkley says that we have to be able to produce our own knowledge in debate. Where in the 1AC did y'all produce your own knowledge?
Right, all of our arguments that we have produced are coming from our own social location. Me and Ray Bond relate personally to these experiences. We can speak from our own subject location. We're talking about with our cards on case, like the Nabra evidence, she talks about her experience and we resonate with those experiences. We're not saying that her experiences are something that we're
regurgitating their experiences though when you read their evidence. Like,
It's
is that the definition of what the regurgitation is?
The new scholarship that we're talking about is like through the 1EC when we highlight the fact that debaters think that we can read a 8-minute 1EC with a plan text and think that the federal government actually does something that regurgitates that same
when they have not done anything themselves.
So the disclosure argument, were these arguments presented when you asked us to disclose? Like, was this, you just asked, is it a new app? We said, yeah. Is there, how could we have predicted this particular claim?
Right, we could have predicted that you were going to be breaking a new app. The argument is based on the fact that you did not disclose to Black community. We think that that is a problem.
But could we have predicted these sort of arguments?
It's not about what you can predict, it's about what we predict.
What we could not have predicted. Our standard talks about how black performance debate is already taken as a joke regardless. We're saying to have a good negative strategy, we need to know your app. If you wanted to disclose to us, you would have. If we asked you what it was, you said
Isn't this like a standard debate practice, though?
No.
Right, that's another problem with
That does
it.
not mean that it's a good thing, right? Like,
just because something is standard doesn't mean that it's good.
Anti-black politics are standard. They're
right,
not good.
exactly.
So when did we claim our 1AC to be like the band-aid solution to all policies?
We are claiming it.
We're saying that you've isolated problems within the status quo, and you're just trying to solve these one problem in your 10-second plans, and that is putting a band-aid over
Can policies ever be good or productive?
You said what?
Can policies ever be good or productive?
It depends on what you define as a policy. A policy enacted by the federal government will defend no.
Yeah.
We'll never do anything better or structurally.
That's what we said.
All right, cool. So is there a possibility for change coming from the government? And if not, how do we get rid of those?
Again,
structures?
we're saying that we are not doing anything through the government. We should not do anything from the government, especially coming from black people who have experienced
what the government
has done for 17 years of our life. They have done nothing productive for us. I'm sorry, what was your question?
If we act outside of the government, that's fine.
We have 10 minutes of prep.
Yeah.
Here you go. This is the same for Joyce.
Thank you.
It can't never get it right now. I'm just over here. My fingers are cold out. It can't ever get it right.
It's weird to have to
Okay, stop prep.
Alright.
Flat prep.
I have 8:30.
Oh, I have that.
8:35.
8:35. Let's go.
You get a flashlight?
Oh, yeah, I'm doing
They
something.
already have one.
Are y'all keeping a prep sheet or should we?
I got it.
Oh yeah, we got one. Yeah. 8:35.
Yeah.
Give me 10 Julia first. Let me do this.
Okay.
We just figured that's easy since there's like a big
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I know. It's like kind of
No, it was this one.
speech.
I don't know how.
I'm going to speech, but I can't.
I think they were on a table. I don't know. I think
Thank you.
Speech to AC semis V2, actually.
Okay.
Julia, just save the name for saving purposes.
Okay.
So when people have the document up, the order is going to be the case, the disclosure argument, and then the criticism. I'm going to give a bit of a case overview. I think it'll probably fit on the case without any worries by too much, and any big worries by anyone.
The case over here at the top?
Yeah. Right.
You want this back?
I need that. I need it.
Oh, sorry. I'm used to you for this.
Let me know when you're good, Brooke.
I just got it. Okay.
Okay. Is anyone who needs to be ready not ready? Okay. The alternative does nothing to deal with the plight of migrants dying of dehydration while crossing the U.S.-Mexico border, while the plan literally makes the state's enforcement of migrants' illegality less violent and disciplinary by establishing a legal permitting mechanism for NGOs like Humane Borders or Fantastic Terrorist Capacity to dispense water to migrants that permits the continuation of practices of justice to reform the state from within. Call for the Doty evidence. It's very descriptive of this practice. They have no defense to this claim. Our advocacy represents the usage of this space as a weak public sphere. We do not believe that we have direct access to politics, but if there is any chance that this space is a training ground for later commitments, you should vote affirmative, because only they foreclose future possibilities by shutting down the possibility of engagement with the state. The role of the ballot is to endorse the best political strategy for resisting oppression. That's not mutually exclusive with any claim they have made, but it is a reason to prioritize the affirmative methodology. The proposals disadvantage should frame your decision. The sinking evidence says the debate is a question of critical education. How we learn not where we learn not what only what to oppose, but how to change it. They can prove that the plan is a bad idea, but you should still vote AF, because we at least teach people how to think about new solutions beyond the status quo through the mechanism, through our mechanism, which means that they need to both specifically criticize the plan and the entirety of the problem-solution formulation of the West Day, resulting in conservatism, because we end up with inaction, which is precisely what the right and Border Patrol want. Now, the framing argument is that we have never said that the state is the sole solution, or the state is always good. We are only saying that you should suspend final judgment on these institutions in favor of an openness to the future. Instruction of power, in order to take this one particular action, because this one action is good. In fact, we don't even endorse state action in general, merely a cessation of bad state actions, because we do not like the critique arguments, because they're purely a negative state action. It's impossible to know the ultimate truth of the state like they claim to. So this is the only possible option. If we win the thesis of the arguments about Derrida, which they have not contested, we have never made a totalizing claim about the state or political engagement. Seems they have to win a specific link to our advocacy to win the debate. Now, their arguments are not mutually exclusive. Laws of net benefits below, but the Doty evidence explicitly says that the destruction of the state is a possible result of the plan, which would eventually solve back for all of their link arguments. Also, we are not a universalization. That's the McClellan evidence. That arguments about the plan can be one good example of the state. Now, we have lots of reasons why foreclosing the possibility of institutions is bad. First is legal permitting. The Fronteras Capacity and Doty evidence indicates that it is a necessity, which means their alternative cannot solve for the suffering of migrants. Second is that deconstructive policymaking is uniquely good. That's the Fritsch evidence. The only effective critique, and no links their generic arguments, because democracy is not static. Even if it's bad in the status quo, that is a thesis statement of the affirmative, because it is hurting migrants. Their link arguments not apply. Third is that the state is an inevitable reality of our political institutions. That is the Simmons evidence. Their links only apply to the state and the status quo, not the world post-plan, because we inject ethics into decision-making models to solve the terminal impacts of their arguments. Their criticism of the state are only about the status quo. Fourth is that engagement is good because their strategy seeds the political. That's the move evidence, which they have not responded to. Is an independent argument that turns the possibility of alternative solvency. Because their attempt to entirely rid ourselves of the state is impossible, which is the claim in the Simmons evidence. The move evidence indicates that causes a fill in by the forces of the right, which makes things far worse. Now we have a sequencing test that we might result in destruction of the nation state, but you are not able to start there like the negative without forfeiting the political. Moves in the right direction are good, and huge reforms fail. Thanks, Miles, for this card. Right? 70% utopia with the Bible, institutional alternatives, somebody makes order of life, practical, cheap, reality, science, depends on. So I said, institutional, but innovations that move us in the right direction, multi partially bodies, valid proposals, all or nothing. Paul, do less likely to document more difficult transition, because problems will be water. Intermediate reforms demonstrate the virtue of the fuller transformation. I think we did convince people the alternative is credible and desirable, enhancing capacity reaction in the future, and bring people together in deliberation, not reforms possible within the existing institution, primarily solve real problems, empowering large scale action in the future. Sorry, that was a really long overview. Now the case arguments they have debate space. First, they say that we cannot have discussions in this particular debate space. This leads to other discussions, an argument on the overview, which is why our whiteness should mean that we allow ourselves to listen to larger scale discussions. The immigrants did call for this from Hoover, which means that the app is a necessary intervention. It's not an example of what their not evidence is about. It's not about Julia or my identity. It's about the larger scale possibilities. Also, solidarity is a powerful mechanism. May 8 those with dominant countries yourself, struggling, so those not the Christian, not on behalf of this. Does not mean those who are organized, nothing say, but these sellers, I like this matter, not precluded, not reducing the listen, them, and applying theirs. What? It means that the women speak with them rather than for them to treat those developing countries, the only respect for their person, radical procedure, physically call them attack of the free special both theirs and our tower dialogue and work proceed from their market. The last argument is that whiteness is structurally dead. That is not true. Their ontologization is uniquely problematic. That's Caputo 97. Identity should take itself to be self-identity today, shaken by violence, genocide, lies, accuracy, identity, actually stands for not standing deconstructors, not being living in shambles. He wants to distinguish when she is standing from a porous identity that differs with self, wants to internally differentiate the right idea of we is to stabilize. The only thing that can be self-identical is the thing itself a stone, even in organic science, do not lack self-differentiation. It's self-differentiation, which is the absolute crucial prerequisite of their politics. Now, the disclosure argument. We want to win this debate, but we also want to have the best debate that we can against every possible opponent, which is why we are breaking into affirmative in this debate. When we debated you and we were negative, we read arguments that did not clash particularly well with your affirmative, and we lost, which is why we have written a strategy specifically to have a debate against you that can ensure clash and deliberations. But we also want to win, and we need to maintain strategic necessity so we can get to the finals of the TOC, because that would be awesome. Which is why we did not disclose the actual text of our plan text. For example, they thesis of the affirmative that endless openness to the future is good, which is why their interpretation shuts that down by concluding us for having good relationships. They need to be open to the possibility of whatever we say, regardless of what it is. So only we can solve our deconstructed politics. We also think the black debate is fantastic and very important, but we cannot do it as individuals. Which is why our strategies of whiteness need to be accepted. Also, disclosure strips the negative from doing the type of strategy assessment they have said is important in Florida and in favor of their coaching staff to it. With the DSRB evidence from the critique criticizes because it says that they would no longer be able to have productive discussions in that method, which is a double bind. Either can you vote affirmative for advocacy, or they absolutely are the only ones to link this argument. Also, the topic being anti-black is not something we agree with because of the infinite openness of the future. Also, not something we're responsible for. Now, the other sheet of paper. Civil society can be reappropriated to fight racism. Black churches prove Machilovsky. 11 backstreets to our own community organization as the type of mobilization crucial activity. Social political structure, different prevents captivity, exploitation, exploitation, have significant influence, politicization, reforms, recognized education, as an instance of creative avenues of participation, social political structure, comes in blacks indeed. Inside new collective ideas, inserts in later decades in the destruction, mobilization occurred through. Schooling the state is a powerfully productive methodology for doing, but it's not the only one, which is the McQuillian evidence. Not their interpretation. The Bobo evidence says that if you do not want to change the system, you are not being cautious. That is literally what the app does. We change the system because we think it's bad. The status quo is like negative, then it's state action. No one said we take the DSRB evidence. You're not an example of regurgitation. We wrote this app by constructing it, reading about humane borders on their website. I donated some money to the campaign that I had. What else would you want us to do? Their interpretation, all their negative strategy, also based on a stack of authors put together. Do you think labeling to this argument too? Also, we do not have a solvency advocate for our advocacy. The Doty evidence just recommends that legal suggestions have to be changed from at least all these accessibility claim. We've never said that advocating the government is a necessary component of good strategy. Just in this specific is the best. Is absolutely the best option. The democratic policy rights accessible to black students should be engaged to ensure good things. Law 7 knowledge without action. Action is used to practice understanding the documentations of human living interacts on any of the contextual problems and conflicts in every African American political life. How going to black Asian to render racist escape bad racial reasoning rights and the assume say the next human African American simply because they are black and short circuit carrying a service the problem confronting actual black living embracing our having to hold up fundamental faith in questions ready to transform the circumstances to wine practices in African American politics. The others open new avenues for thinking about both on college campuses. I invoke my pragmatic commitments to base it for management African American policy to reject racist conceptions of black identity.
Mark identity.
Yeah, mark identity, sorry. They say link of omission. We should not be responsible for that. The affirmative is a productive starting point for engaging those things. Maybe we did not discuss black individuals in the 1AC, but you have in the past said that preemption is a bad methodology, so we did not do that in order not to, because our advocacy is also important. Should be divorced from any particular possible alternative advocacy. They said civil society was bad. That was the Machilovsky evidence in the case. But there is no social death law. 11 mothers to black social death they run. And control the American Africans so we ignore they make supposed to be able to not equal transnational organizations attempts to reserve bread. White and black is not by the I wonder what Wilderson makes of the content countless direction during the middle classes. Once Wilderson theories blacks and social anthology that will discuss there seems no way to be black. Their negativity is inherently positive as a result of the impossibility of deconstruction, which by the app or the combination of mutual exclusivity is the best option.
I guess my first question would be, do you think it would be better to be a good slave master or a bad slave master? For the slave, like coming from the position of a slave, do you think that you would want your slave master to treat you well or treat you badly?
I'm not sure the relevance of this to the affirmative, I guess is my first claim, because the affirmative is only a specific claim about one.
You've identified yourself as white. We have evidence that you did not answer in the 2AC that about why your white identity is a bad thing. My question again to you, you talked about how you donated to their campaign. You were being a good slave master. My question is,
I absolutely did not agree with that characterization. Donating to a campaign that I agree with is not me becoming a better slave master.
That's also
fine. It is the solidarity that the
You talked about how seating the political is a bad thing. Why is the political not already seated?
So our argument is not that a seating of the political has occurred, it is that failures to engage institutions, like what you've proposed with your alternative, are problematic because they allow...
So why have you chosen not to go to the federal government now, but you've chosen to come to debate?
I do not... Okay, well, debate is a place where I construct my political subjectivity. I do not have access to the federal government.
Right, but I don't understand how it is that we're seating the
political
if we're in just this debate round.
Say that one more time?
I don't understand how we're seating the political if we're just in this debate round.
I think that the practical consequences of what we advocate here and discuss matter for external politics. Our affirmative is a good method of advocacy, and your alternative is a bad one.
So I don't understand how you actually resolve anything for this.
Oh, yeah, actually there's one more crucial bit to this, which is the Kurosawa evidence about weak public spheres, which says that debate can become a community that coheres around beneficial ideals.
So, first, where did you stop?
Which card?
This document?
I didn't read all of the cards in here. I can give you one with exactly the ones I did, but the last card I read was Ba 11.
Okay. My next question is, you said our advocacy represents the usage of this space. How can we use this space to change something?
I guess or
are you just saying that we should just be activists?
I'm perplexed by the burden that would place on the affirmative to result directly in institutional change.
No, I'm just saying, you're saying we're using this space. What are we using this space for?
As I said earlier, I think the phrase, "this is a place where I construct my political subjectivity," is a relevant one because, engaging politics is sometimes really tough, and debate is a place that I can learn to do it better. So the advocacy of the affirmative for what the government could or should do is a productive way of learning how to deal with civil society to avoid lots of the sort of lack of engagement arguments that
Can you explain how you met your role of the ballot?
Our role of the ballot is to endorse the best political strategy for resisting oppression. The affirmative does that by, basically a lot of the things that I said about how our engagement is productive in this space, how our advocacy statement would be a good idea, and how keeping a radical openness to all future possibilities, like the McQuillian evidence talks about, is a prerequisite for resisting oppression.
Yes.
Here's this one block.
Yeah, we're.
We got it.
Yeah, thank you.
You went to bed. I took down your projects first. You went to bed. And then the real loyalists showed up and equal business project. And you the game was all backwards. It's a waste. Get out of yourself, man. You said yourself.
I'm gonna handle the bottom. It's like this key answer. I'm gonna do something like state.
Okay. So starting where? Starting on what? We don't say state. We don't say state is good.
Yes. We don't say state is good.
And stopping at political?
Yes.
No, I'm putting it right here so you can tell. So I got this top stuff for the ballot. So
All that.
they were how are we? Then 2 minutes.
Okay, fine, yeah. Let's get you away this time. This one's like Link up the super principle by Bengali. It's awful. You probably have some. This one is seriously.
Oh, that.
Jack. This is
That's all.
Alright, 423.
Somebody keeping track of all the pro stuff?
Yeah, I got it.
Awesome, thank you.
So, what's the now?
423.
I don't need it.
Oh.
Thank you.
Oh, Lord Jesus.
It's hard to kill you.
Is that on your computer? Or is it
Huh?
Did that
Oh, no, it's fine, yeah. It like almost took it out the game.
Yeah, like my computer. Right after our round against y'all, my computer just went dead.
Are you serious?
This is Vivian's computer from everything.
Wow.
I think you've been through, like, do you want this on all computers?
It is. Alright, the order, I'm going to go to the case debate first, but I'm starting at like the arguments about why the state is not necessarily like, so like they made a lot of state arguments on like the case flow. I'm like starting there, if that like makes sense. So like there was some like not
good,
yeah,
so like
we
the
don't
part
say
where they
stay
did
good.
that,
Yeah.
see the political stuff.
Yeah.
From that point is
Okay, so from legal permitting to engagement?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Wherever you're talking about the state on case, that's where I'm going.
Nice.
And then it's going to be the disclosure stuff. And then it's going to be the K, but you need a new sheet for an overview because it's like harder than stuff. Ready? It does not make sense that they say that they are not necessarily saying that the city's keeping this one instance is good, because we say that the affirmative plan section said that last, and I advocate to actually make the debate spirit we publish where to actually talk about immigrants. That's a one to see advocacy statement that solves that. That's not that is not you actually rely on the federal government actually enacting a policy, because the moment that you open up your mouth and say that the federal government should do something, that means that you co-opted the one to see as a piece of scholarship, because you literally inserted your author an actor that we are saying is racist. They say that you can do this one good thing, this one good time, but we are saying that that is law for whiteness to be violent in one instance, and we are saying that all instances of violence is enough for you to actually reject in the first instance. They say that they are a negation of the state action, but since you are a negation of state action, you should have never really been a state action in the first place, seeing that you are saying that you not actually need the state to actually solve the entirety of the one. And see, they say that specifically we do not have a link to this argument, but I'll do that analysis later. They say specifically there is a distinction between the state and what they are actually doing with the one. See, but that probably means that the version of the one they see that we gave solved, because if you did not need the actual state to enact something, that probably means that you could have just yourself actually been the intellectual to actually create the type of discourse around the immigrant and around the way that literally the immigrant is deprived of certain resources like water that they actually need. They say that the state that the state is not always necessary or just done that work above. They say that the state is notable, but that begs the question to whether or not the one state can solve or not, because first you say that the state is not necessarily key, but then you say that this inevitable, which probably means that the one state is a piece of scholarship will inevitably commodify, because their reliance on the state makes some feed into the biopolitics of the actual state in the first place, which justifies things like fascism. It actually justifies things like the immigrants actually being excluded in the first place. They say they want to sequence and decide because a step in the right direction is good, but we are saying that the one you see is not a step in the right direction, it's a step in the right direction. My partner is that inside of the one in our with the not debate. They say that that you should vote for ethics, but we are actually critiquing ethics, because we are saying that there can never be an ethical decision making. So as long as we are talking about the slave, the entire thesis of the critique assumes that there is not a possibility for a policy makers to actually enact in an ethical way when we are dealing with the slave. They say that we see things like the political, but I think that the political is already seated, because the right wing has already feel politics only through the one AC can we actually change the way that we actually have conversations inside of institutions, that we can actually reshape the way that politics actually functions. Discourse arguments. Silent, secret, and hidden acts are what keep the slave at the position of the slave. Whiteness relies on the black individuals to be in a state of the non-knowing to assert power. This white idea relies on the world of things of unseen that has been the bedrock of ideological foundation of a foundation of violence and white supremacy. This is Baker in 288. American social justice is a horde. Sending police officers targeting for fire horses, electric quarters, sending mortar bombs, assassination, bullets, black massacre, ideological driven will focus on this Palestinian. I want you to allies to be influential state of white American ideological machine as well as the fact returns of the hardest well split itself into training ground interview for the weighty 30s well far for the days of new millennials well struggles over the injuries the black minorities new these type of unseen orders and violence and more equals actually overcome the impossible as well as came back and singular stated but reply recognition but the right physical violence is not the opposite correlation the body by the right ideas the white individual more of things unseen has now been the bedrock of ideological foundation of violence is white supremacy and so long as views those whole ideas are passing more most dangerous to also instant the black majority and Louisville slogan and blind hearts and first are arguments that when whiteness wants to keep shit secret you start getting things like the P or L you start getting things like the Kentucky round you start getting things like the slave actually being slave you start getting things like the stage or ground laws and the stop and frisk laws inside of New York. Now the first argument they make is really weak. It specifically says that you want to win debates, but your whiteness is not actually justified you winning debates. We want to win debates also, so we're saying that using the politics of whiteness is not a justification for why you should actually get about it. There's a reason why you should not get about it. They say that when they were negative against us, their stuff did not lead to the Winnie, which means that there was no clash. But that's your fault for having a weak strategy because we actually is close to Winnie and give you an actual chance to actually build your strategy. It's not our fault that you had a weak strategy. They say that they need to be open to whatever we want to talk about. We'll concede that. We're saying that the only way that we open to what you are talking about is if you actually tell us what you are talking about. People always want to scream coalitions, but if you can't even tell the black people that you want to actually be in your coalition what you are talking about, then that probably just links to the not evidence about how the white body always wants to be the leader, the messiah over the black body. And they literally the one they see is saying that this is the outline. If you want to be in a coalition, they follow this. But if you have a problem with that, then you cannot be inside the coalition. Now, furthermore, they say that their strategy of whiteness is a good form of whiteness. We have New Year's that there is no form of a good whiteness because our evidence specifically says that whiteness is the way that we actually keep the slave compliant with being a slave in the first place. And I'll say the DSRB evidence is turned by this, but the DSRB evidence is not turned by this. No matter who our coaches is, the DSRB evidence is specifically to talk about producing new scholarship. If the performance of the one AC was whiteness, that means it's not a form of scholarship. They say it's not their fault the topic is anti-black, but it is your fault that you perform pre-round whiteness. Is any good reason to reject them? They over. We are making an argument that the Middle Passage was the first immigration policy. The new scholarship that they talk about is included inside of the 1AC because we open up new dialogue inside of the debate community. Society has spelled by writing our marked out of the world framework simply because the slave is the start of death and humanism, and the others is the permanent on the oppression of the slave. Now that turns the case means the trigraphic pessimism of civil society is funded upon the slave-master relations that explanates and alienates the black body and causes towards violence reformers measures only through the way for white and worsen. 2010 black is well, articulation legislation, untouchable within the exponential systematic of the field of the highly FBI progressive points of importance. And the government's stubborn normal expertise alienation and versa logic word these possession arriving in the calculation between those who actually labor and those who actually require the imagery of Satan society and our to human passion no slave no word outside of the government suffering and slave is not the anti-humanism a position against such humanity misalignment and maintains the renewable here's as well as interpreting the slave is no bar from practice and generally is out of perpetuated opening towards violence. Inside of the cross, they said specifically what it used to be to actually embrace a politics of subjectivity, but this is an independent reason why the slave cannot be involved inside of the 1AC because the slave does not have the subjectivity. So that problem means that they try that as an independent reason why both negative to actually embrace the slave trying to reach that point of subjectivity and actually engage in a form of scholarship that we can actually be involved in. They say that level society can actually be reappropriated, but we are raising the question about for whom it can be reappropriated. The Bobo 13 evidence specifically talk about how now blackness is psychological, which means that no reform that you actually take can actually include blackness. Furthermore, what is intended evidence as that the civil society is funded upon the slave-master relationship. This is shown in immigration policy where the federal government are literally the slave masters and the immigrants or the slave that actually want to come to America for a better life, but the slave master never asked let them do this in the first place. They say that they are not actually trying to, we are not changing the system, but the Bobo evidence is talking about changing the system through a use of pessimism, which means that the 1AC cannot actually encounter this because they are actually retaining the belief in American existence in democracy, and they say that the DSRP is not the DSRP is not linked because they are not regurgitation of knowledge, but at the point in which you are literally just redefining the federal government and actually using scholarship about people produced in active in favor of the federal government means that you are that regurgitation. Now, the alternative is literally to reject the notion of freedom or arguments that is what produces violence against the slave, which probably means that voting negative creates a new form of scholarship that DSRP evidence calls for. In the first place, they say that advocating, they say that this type of advocation is necessary just as well. They say that democratic public sphere is able for the black person, but we have a couple arguments here. Subpoint is only available when you actually want to disclose your shit, and so let us know what you are actually talking about. Subpoint B, our evidence also statements has that no matter how the black actually tries to engage in these type of public spheres, it's never really expected because our intellectual thoughts are never really seen as being intellectual, so we can never really engage in. Moreover, democracy never really suits blackness because literally the black people are what is in 10 evidence specifically says that the humanism of others is burst for the murder of the slave, which probably means that the violence that they try to stop for the Mexican immigrant cannot really be solved because the anti-blackness of the Middle Passage it was actually justified the violence upon those inside of Mexico because they are ontologically black inside of the United States federal government. They say that specifically that we said preemption is bad. That is not a reason why leaks of emissions are a good thing because that is not you actually preempted. That's you being considered. They last say that there is no social death. You never experienced social death, meaning that you cannot actually make this argument. The bar evidence about African diasporas, which is not actually assumed the way that we said that blackness is now an ontological category that people lump you in.
So I guess I want to start with that last argument. You said that blackness is not an ontological category?
I didn't say that. Okay. I said that I said blackness is an ontological category.
Okay, where does that ontological category come from?
From a white person that decided that an African was no longer African, it was black. Okay. And then that sense of blackness now created a form of blackness where whoever is not good enough to be white is ontologically black. I'm curious
how it is that you reconcile that with the Bobo evidence, which you say is descriptive of radical pessimism. How is it that you solve for the impacts you're identifying?
No one ever said we solved. Our alternative is to abandon the notion of freedom, abandon the notion of solving stuff, because we said it's not possible in an anti-black society.
How does that result in positive sort of like politics?
That's the thing. Our argument is that there is no positive politics for people of color, so we should not try to actually...
Who is a person of color specifically?
A person of color is like anyone that is not...
Like the migrants that the app helps, are they people of color?
Yes, they can be considered a person of color. Our argument is not just specific to people of color, it's about anti-blackness.
Why it is that you think that this broad sweeping claim about the state is responsive to the app, when one of our main thesis points is that a radical openness to absurdity is important?
Well, a couple of arguments. If that's the case, that means that you don't need a state. Hence, the 1AC was a bad idea because you rely on the state when you don't need it.
Why does that mean we don't need the state?
No. Yes, those are arguments that you made. You said that the state is not necessary. We're saying that we got right.
I mean, we think it's necessary in this case, not necessary.
Well, and that's what we're saying. We're like, that's how whiteness like made to itself. It's like, well, in this one, only us in this one.
Yeah, I understand that part. I guess I'm just curious why it is that you think the thing you said before, not the question of whether using the state in one particular instance is white, but about whether that means we don't need the state.
No. An argument that you made in the 2AC is that we don't rely on the state. You just use the state in one instance because it can be a good idea.
Okay. After you engage in your sort of like pessimistic politics, is that a correct characterization? Okay. What happens to the rest of the the FG out there?
The what?
The federal government. Sorry.
Oh, well, we don't really care. Our argument is about how we center our conversation. Well, it's like twofold, right?
Okay, so I guess if we're not allowed to engage this...
Well, it's not a question of we. You identified yourself as
okay,
white.
I'm sorry, excuse me. If you don't think that politics can begin with an engagement with the federal government, how does the federal government change? Like, does it just disappear?
We're saying that there is no change within the federal government. That's the whole point of being pessimistic.
So then what does that do about the existence of the federal government still doing the same thing?
Well, our argument is that changing the way that we have conversations is a mode of resistance against that federal government. Okay. So as long as we understand as individuals that we don't have to...
what would you rather have had us do?
If you can break a new app, but that does not mean that you don't have to tell us what that app is.
Okay, fair enough. Is it okay for us to have like strategic interest in debate? Or should we just lose every round?
You don't have... Okay. If you say, I'm breaking a new app, this is the app, that's not you losing every round.
Last question. Last time we debated, you said you were thinking about breaking a new app but decided against. Is this standard not to...
No, because our evidence is specific to white people trying to form coalitions with people of color,
gotcha.
but not being
honest. Why is this a
coalition? No. Our argument is that the 1EC talks about how...
Case debate, weird order. Stuff at the top, starting from the alt, does not deal with the plight of the migrants to... We teach people how to think outside this world, that part, and then we get to the back, the Nopper debate, okay?
So it's like sandwich of...
So yes, exactly, right. Can you pass me ours, Rayvon?
Oh, sorry. Would it be awful if I just flowed the 1 hour down from the bottom of what Rayvon said on the case?
You might miss some stuff, but go for it.
Okay.
Alright, wait, so just so we can get like a standardization of the judges, can the 1 hour just act like this was a line, or is that going to mess up everyone's flows?
It's a choice, I guess. I mean, I've got space, so I'm just going to sandwich it.
Alright, let's do it.
Alright.
The middle of the sandwich is still in, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, we're going to drop them.
It's not a KFC double.
Y'all get back to Rayvon.
Yeah.
I didn't. Oh.
Gibberish.
It is just a case, right?
Yes, it is. You got it, Rayvon?
No.
Are you still pulling out?
Julia still doesn't know. She kind of forgot to first.
Thank you.
Okay, we are both ready.
Alright, good. This law doesn't do anything to do with the plight of the migrant dying of today. Neither does the 1EC. Rather, we change the way the app think that they can advocate. We teach them how to have portable skills that are not inherently anti-black. It's not a debate that they not handle. After this, the role of knowledge to have a politics strategy for resisting. The strategy of the affirmative is problematic. They are commodified in the immigrant trouble. We ask them exactly what they're doing to advocate against the federal government. They're not doing it. They're only advocating in this debate. So even if they say that it's a good, you said the debate say we're winning the fact that it's inherently anti-black with their position. As a white person, the next argument they made that the propulsion is that key to education. We'll say that from the education is that because inherently anti-black, that's not a debate at all. Get to now. All right. We'll win the affirmative, the best like matches that they can be coupled, damning conception made by the 2AC. They can see the agnostic at 97 of the context of the 1AC, the rhetorical artifact, 11 truly have defined themselves that 2 white individuals are not evidence criticize their self-affirming white identity as white. People whiteness is not a skin color, the system of domination, the anti-blacks and me, that the characterization of Nopper evidence still full segregation. Now they made the argument that the immigrant people have actually called on them to do. They gave the example of how they called people like if we know them as we have not called on you to be advocating in this debate. Say maybe they can even advocate for you to be doing something outside of the debate round, but they have not advocating for you to talk about it in a aiming speech act where you're not actually getting any change down. The white savior had never shit this is framing for how crucial you evaluate the big whole. 2012 levels to be the active here, the white savior and industrial company, the value for releasing the unbearable press that built to the system of pillage. We can participate in the economic destruction over Haiti for longer, but the earthquake strikes they feel to get send $10 to sit in the URC free are going to interfere in the lives of them. If they do, they'll just the minimum requirement. Remember back in the 2 weeks we were at left talking about how he does care about typical organization. He gave a donation and the evidence is specific and actually that the fact that you're not actually going to advocate it, but you decided to just give them money. Now, if you vote at the ballot function of the policy of self-subordination, the judge in the current party backwards solidarity with the other by valor rather than material, that we're protecting their speech like the strategy amount to nothing more than a sham or enunciation now for the same structures of power that produce alternatives in the purpose of turning the case to a higher level of now to Chow 93, sorry. He amounts to very much like Mount typically a cultural critic who lived in the Catholic society who fed up with cultural rap, like cultural critic who wants a social order approach to the one that's supporting her own. Understand the Maoist is the supreme example how the way that did not what she always looked at the other resulting in identity with the valorization of what she did not have since about what the valor of the other deprivation having poverty or having nothing. Maoist strategy becomes the main rhetorical organization the power and that enabled her record in the next argument the not rap is not talk about them or to the yes and if you have conceded the not to talk about when you claim your whiteness when are you performing your white identity that is the problematic. It talks about specifically how when she explained her lived experience, we resonate with the Navar's experience because when white people are trying to lead the discussion, we only crowd out the impression they made the argument that they said that the athletes is a crucial prerequisite. No, it's not the Navar debate that no Navar you may still see in vote negative and nausea. That means that the hostility of white liberals toward the abolition of their fellowship development labor abolition was not the same that having claimed the expression of working that's when the world see flip where they reflecting the refuse to be themselves part of the work the class with these slaves they show that liberals they view themselves as more than white people serving the white races they club certain people are enrolled in an adverse without the convincing brought up according to its rule for most part to go through life accepting the privileges of membership without reflecting on the cause of white club does not require that all there would be strong advocates of white supremacy merely that they defer to the prejudice or based on the huge assumption that all those who look white are whatever their presentation must be fundamentally loyal to. For example, how the club where poor people in advantage their job they had nothing more to do with the color. What is unusual that it has to be comfortable now that they beat up people they are normally beat up property is white is worse than the way that the constantly get a person decide on the basis of color where the person is loyal to the system that they are sworn to a system they don't stop to think about a black person is happening to the whipping energy they assume it. They concede the first Navar evidence talks about how they concede the second Navar evidence specifically talk about whiteness that they structure needs to die before we can have any effective policy. If you're winning the fact that we should be using this space to effectively, we're winning the fact that you need to destroy the system of white. You shouldn't have that claim. Your whiteness said that identity is not. If we had looked at you and decided that, or if we had looked at you and decided that you were white, that would be a problem. When we asked them how do you identify yourself as white, that was a structure of domination. Even if the structure of domination are not going to specifically talk about how if they want to effectively engage in things like anti-racism, then they need to submit to the people of color, which they have not actually done. The problem is child evidence. The reason why you should vote. Child evidence. The reason why you should vote against affirmative. They subordinate to the other. Anything else you want me to say?
Yeah, they said that you should vote AF because they teach people how to think. That's the problem with them not.
They said vote AF to teach people how to think. I already answered that above. But it talks about we're winning the fact that you're still promoting the system of whiteness just because you're saying that we should do some good stuff. You're still embedded in the structures of whiteness per the NOPR evidence. We're winning that to education that you will be providing in the debate space and inherently anti-black, which is why your portable skills will be a problem in a dissent to voting affirmative. At least vote neg on presumption. Anything? Okay.
Can you remind us how much prep we have left?
Yes.
8:35.
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you.
No, actually, no.
Yeah, no, I just was asking for the question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not necessarily. From my perspective.
Are you okay? We have like tons of just water.
Many drinks.
Oh yeah, it's
I'm gonna take one.
Honorable, you have to pull your pants up. Of course it feels great. Of course it feels great. Of course it feels great.
What? Oh.
He was really sweet. We be I heard that not their conversation, by the way.
Oh. What are you talking? I actually guessed it when you asked that question. It's like, yeah. Why not? You're so black.
It's a mess. I can't have it.
Whatever, yeah.
He was like,
213 left over. Speech 1 AR. Y'all got 213 back there in the judging land? Perfect. They're just so far away.
I'm like, they're rude.
Have you seen Rubata today?
What?
Have you seen Rubata today?
I have not. I saw him once yesterday.
Yeah, I'm
yesterday.
saying.
I think his judging commitment ended with doubles, so he might have left.
Oh, I thought he had a team here.
Yeah, he did. But
His commitment ended, so yeah.
Oh.
We call speech 1AR sentence.
Yeah. Right.
Definitions.
Academic pressure.
What's that?
Academic pressure. It's most likely this.
Who was asking the GBA round?
Did anybody know who was asking the GBN versus Centennial round?
Nope.
Did they read conscientiousization?
Not really. I hate debating though. It's like I'm like,
Like
trying to spread that is like worse.
You just gotta come up with your own word for it. Like, I'm just gonna call it this.
One person had the same pronunciation.
Really long.
Okay.
Right.
So the order. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the order is going to be part 1 of the 1 in our sandwich.
Okay.
That was like the stuff on top of case.
Hey.
Then,
Satellites. Quiet. Planets.
alright, yeah. Part 1 of the 1 in our sandwich. Then 2MC portion of that sandwich. Then just going straight down because all the 1 in our stuff then comes underneath that. And then disclosure sheet. And then overview. And then the K.
It's only in case you're just going straight down.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just flowed the top of the 1 in our in a different place because I didn't leave enough room. So that's going to explain my pauses. Everyone good?
Yes.
They have not provided an alternative role for debate besides a weak public sphere in order to behave in a game. Political subjectivity left explicitly makes this rare. Do we see that we form all of our political determinations based on what we do in this space? Not saying provide pragmatic alternatives aside from bare criticism that could actually be applied in the outside world, and their the functionality of the alternative is a weak public space will never produce anything productive because as political actors we will never be able to effectuate change because A, people watching the ground won't know what to do with the bare critique. This is the kind of the sticking evidence, and B, we won't know what to do either because we haven't gained anything besides the ability to criticize, which they say they give us portable skills, but they don't agree when they claim debate is a weak public sphere. We say that we have the potentiality to resolve the state. This is the claim of the Doty card. We can eventually lead the destruction of the state, but the state is key in this particular instance because there are specific permanent claims that the state owns that no amount of criticism will ever get the state to change unless the state does the action itself. That's why we invoke the state in this particular instance, not because we think the state is good, but because we know that the state is necessary when the state holds the literal documents that have permitting. Now the rest of the case arguments, the argument about democracy to come, they fundamentally mishandle this. We do not think that democracy is inherently the democracy is necessarily good. That we think that it's constantly changing and self-reflexive, which means that we never idealize the perfect example of the state. We don't even think the state is particularly good, which is why we are as negative state. Actually, we identified the thing that the state did that was messed up, i.e. killing allowing migrants to die in the desert. We have a particular mechanism whereby the state can resolve this is a form of democracy to come. We know the state will constantly be self-reflexive and improving itself, which means that it's try or die for the kind of reformism. We are a particular denunciation, which means that constant criticisms of alike are the only way to engage it because we provide a normative claim about what the state can do. This claim, which means that we are not one good time because democracy to come is constantly changing.
And that constant changing proves they can't turn the case because it'll self-correct.
And constant changing proves that they can't turn this case because democracy itself will self-correct and keep reinforcing its own mechanism, which means there's no way to tear it down except with belief in the democracy. They say that there's a version of the 1AC without the state, but all the claims about permitting reasons why that version will never be able to solve, and there is a possibility for ethical claims. We say that pragmatism is an accessible method for people in their subject position. This is an internal claim of the law and evidence that pragmatism should be accessible to anyone, everyone, and is the only possible reason it's not our extension of pragmatism is the fact that they can appropriate pragmatism for themselves, which means the debate as a weak public sphere would be able to use that themselves and to do the debate about Lebanon being white here. The main evidence about solidarity does not say that Lebanon should ever claim to be a part of your particular struggle, that just that there's a possibility for solidarity and recognizing that we ourselves live in the structure of whiteness, but there is literally nothing that no alternative that they offered of what debate could be for Lebanon. We will not be leaving debate as a result of this, which means that if there's no alternative conception, you can't tell us at the end of the round what Lebanon could have done differently in this particular reason, that this is not a reason for negative ballot. If we can prove that there's something productive there's no possibility for us to really do anything about this, go to disclosure. We allow you to answer those because all the arguments about secrecy and keeping ourselves out of the realm, if they can still provide adequate argumentation, I think the fact that most of the debate was about a specific criticism, they were prepared for anyone means that we don't preclude the kind of discussion being none of the arguments about secrecy. We ourselves are rightness too, is that they did rob the claim about we have to be radically open in the future, which means predictability is fundamentally subversive because we always have to be open for things that will happen, will be unpredictable. Three is that DSRB evidence, we have to come up with our own conclusions about things, which means that that could happen internally within the debate space. No particular reason why it had to happen pre-round preparation, and there's no claim about what Lev and I should have done differently. They didn't advance this claim when they asked this in the beginning, which means there's no way this was a particularly predictable claim, and it does not prove that Lev and I are complicit in anti-black structures.
If they'd asked, we would have told them what
If they'd asked with this particular front-loading, we would have told them go to the overview. I think most of the Turns case claims they don't have a possibility unless you can explain what the actual ultimate pessimism will ever do. It is distinct from what Sick directly criticized insensitivity. Thesis of constant critiquing the fact that we can never produce any actual change. We'll do just that. We'll never solve radical openness, which means the migrants will continue to die in the desert, and they don't have a method of doing anything to do this. Okay, proper here. This is enslavement never being involved in subjectivity. The law evidence is a direct turn to this. It says there was always a form of subjectivity. The social death theory is fact incorrect because there's always a way to engage in politics. This is also the claim of the law evidence that there is a possibility to engage in politics, which means unless you can directly explain why there is no subjectivity, and there was a warrant for that in the 2NC, which I did not catch, that I don't think this is particularly structured. The Bobo evidence just if we can win with these structures, isolating the Bobo evidence can't change through radical propositions like the affirmative that we resolve, which means that we are a form of new scholarship.
We lead to all this stuff, but we also help migrants.
We lead to all this stuff, but we preclude that by helping migrants, which means the perm is always the best option.
423, is that right?
Yes, it is.
What is that not evidence?
He talks about how
We can't share.
it's not
That's because that was assigned to us.
in there. Yes, that's what she said. Why is it not
Close it.
What? Knees.
Okay. It's case. Disclosure. Overview sheet K. Huh?
Somewhere in the one here.
Yes, yes. Sorry. Case is the order of the one guy. Ready? The first argument is one yard makes on the case falls that we do not actually propose or turn into a debate. Actually look like we say that this is false solutionary briefly. Evidence we said that we stop actually relying on the federal government as being a part of our scholarship since they said that the federal government is not using all other instances. I'm going to extend the sort of floating pick that we have on case. The advocacy statement should have been that left, and I actually advocate to open up the debate series to public discourse to actually talk about the immigrant. We are literally saying that this holds 100% of the way C because we are winning the reformism. This side that proves that even if the 2 are pretty convinced about why they does not allow for us to actually reform the state of arguments that reforming. They say this is not what we actually need to do is reforming how we actually talk about the state reforming the scholarship that are inside of the institution in the first place. Now the next argument that we're actually that specifically said that we do not tell them what to do, but they just answered above. We told you that you should just advocate for it yourself. That probably means that is an increase in their own agency because instead of relying on the actual state that we both agree it's bad they lost from them actually next in the first place. And they say that they specifically said that you cannot actually change the state unless you work within it. But this is literally just back to the question of where you actually speak from in the first place. I think that we were doing a great job of the criticism that says that for people of color we cannot actually change the state because now literally like anti-black is a psychological, which probably means that no reformism can actually solve. They say that it's try or die for this type of reinforcement for reformism, but we have literally a reformism besides that's the bubble 13 evidence that says that never really comes from the objectivity of the actual state. Now they say pragmatism is a way that we can actually have ethical demands, but they see the fact that the slave can never be ethical inside of society, which means that no action that we take that is ethical, it can actually include the slave, which probably means that if they want to see it's ethical, that's the individual reason why you should vote negative because that's the individual reason why you should vote negative because the ethics of the 1AC does not actually assume the objectivity of the slave, the inability that policymakers have to actually act ethical. They say that pragmatism should be for everyone, but that does not mean that it is. The white debate, whatever that means. Not for debate. They say the possibility of solidarity, but we are reading on the other flow that since you are dressed in whiteness, that means that solidarity failed in the first place. Now, our evidence specifically says you never asked a person of color whether they want to stand in solidarity with you. The number evidence specifically says that when a white body actually wants to assume that people of color actually want them to stand in solidarity, it means that you are literally saying that this is what's going to happen. You are going to follow this or you're going to shut up. Our evidence specifically says that makes you the white messiah. Now, they can see the child evidence that is distinctly different. So, any reason why you should vote negative, the child evidence says that makes you the Maoist. The child evidence actually explains the Maoist as always wanting what is always inside of the other. In our arguments that when you actually take that from the other, then what they actually get is the other's deprivation, which means that you never actually really solved in the first place. Furthermore, extended in 1997 evidence, we're saying that your acknowledgement of actually being white is what actually allows you to keep those structures up in the first place, which just means that even if we were to actually, if we were to argue that by you biting into that actually affirming your whiteness, that means that you automatically co-opt the politics of the 1AC because instead of actually being an advocate for people of color, you were just an advocate for your own whiteness. Last extent, the Code 12 evidence specifically said that makes you the white savior because since you have not really consulted these people, that means that you are the white savior. Of course, the 2AR will say that we have a census done by the people of Cuba and we just regurgitated that, but that probably links them to the criticism that you are not the actual one doing the consistency of the people of color, rather you rely on someone else. The disclosure. This, at the end of the day, this is all we are when they have no defense about specifically why they did not disclose to 118. Now, of course, the tweeter is going to say that that's because they did strategic and we actually wanted to win, but just because you break a new app does not mean that you cannot tell us what that app actually is. Now, here is anybody reason why you vote negative. The Baker 2KE evidence specifically says that the whiteness only maintains itself by keeping itself secret, which means that even if you do think that not disclosing the 118 is not a bad idea, the fact that we are reading the fact that secrets is how whiteness maintains itself, that's an independent reason why the brief performance of whiteness of the 118 is the reason why you should reject their scholarship, or it's just a reason why solidarity can never really work because people of color can never actually be included in the policies that the 118 wants to include them in. The overview. They can see the fact that the middle passage was the first actual immigration policy, which means that only certain anti-black can actually solve that. It probably means that if you do not know what the alternative is coming at the end of the debate, that means that you can vote negative on the case, and there are no utilitarian extrapolations because you do not actually answer the first thing they say that there is no actual extrapolation of what pessimism is. We are saying that the alternative is to abandon the notion of freedom, the act that you actually think that you can stop. They are conceding the fact that the federal government is the slave master and the people, the immigrants of Mexico are the slaves, as long as what is in the evidence says the civil society is one about the slave master relationship. It means that the alternative is to orient ourselves about how we can bring the end of the world to actually stop these policies from happening. In the first instance, they say that the migrants will keep dying, but they can see the fact that the black as an immigrant will continue to die because we are immigrants as we step off their boats for the middle passage. The line by line. They extend the white evidence. They said that it's returned to the black body having no subjectivity, but we literally said that the white evidence is bad because it's specifically talking about things like the African diasporas. When diasporas are bad, in the first place, they said that we can engage in policies. They have functioned the fact that every time a black intellectual engages in time of public discourse, they are regarded as intellectuals because the black is not seen as being a good intellectual. In the first instance, they never really have this type of subjectivity. Just answers the both. They take the perm sauce best. Oh, is this a new 1-year permutation? Well, that's whiteness. Your ability to actually fluid through act. That shows the fluidity of whiteness. Your ability to actually that is your ability to actually spike out of the links inside. If you want to see more over that, the links are disadvantaged through the permutation. So point A is the Goldberg 715 evidence that says that their humanism is birthed from the murder of a slave. And our sub-point B is the Woodson 10 evidence, but specifically says that civil society is opponent upon the contradiction of black people. Means that the permutation is an independent reason to vote negative. Protected to in our new answers.
We have some amount of time, but y'all know. 2:13.
Glasses though.
I need a big gold chain.
Right. Wait, can I see those actually?
No. Of course you do. No. Yes.
I wish I had them before my. I wish I had them before my students.
You know. Where
The debate's not over yet, by the way.
I know.
Okay, okay. I didn't know you were doing it like weird things would be like. What happened?
No. I just want to see the glasses. Say hi. Hi, camera. Wait a minute. I got glasses. Glasses on glasses. Let's see. Swaggerful. Wait.
You look fierce.
I'll be back.
Okay.
I'll meet you there.
Okay.
And we have none. I'm so sorry. I didn't do that song. So in the creation house, you ain't thinking about yourself. It's not my fault. I have to. You're not here yet. Sorry.
But I can do it.
Okay, so the order is the criticism, then the criticism overview, then the disclosure argument, and then the case in the 1AR and 2NR order, which would be same. Now that I'm ready. Is anyone not ready? The criticism or argument about the law evidence that it's not related to diasporas. It says that the possibility of diaspora is okay, but it can become open to futurity even if the diaspora is bad in the first place. The affirmative politics of futurity is a radically okay one, which means that even if ontological death exists in the status quo, it can be reformed using the affirmative methodology. Which gets me to the permutation argument. The 1A flags it as a permutation, but the 2AC absolutely made this argument. I say it's not mutually exclusive because, and then I give like 4 reasons, including the Doty evidence, which is fantastic. And you frame your decision, maybe calling it a permutation is different, but its function is still the same. It's not an example of whiteness. This would have been a fantastic argument if they okay if the argument if they had made it in the block, but the permutation is not whiteness. It's not fluidity. The 1AC was always already a starting point, which means that Julia and I's suppositionality is not the end all of the 1AC. It is a beginning. The Doty evidence says that a possible result of the AF is the destruction of the state, which should frame your decision because maybe the political is not perfect, but the AF and the permutation at least keep open the possibility of new and innovative becoming that permit all of their solvency arguments, but also allow us to solve the AF specific offense about migrants crossing the border. They have no coherent claim as to how they resolve any particular portion of the affirmative claims about fronteras que pasan, suffering of migrants trying to cross the border, which means that they can be 100% right that the state is bad, which is something that we agree with in every instance except for one, and that is this one. The Doty evidence says that the possible result of the after we destroy the state. The basic point is the McQuillian evidence, which they have not responded to ever, which says that radical openness and promise is never about shutting down possibilities to resist the possibility of any refilling of the public sphere by whiteness, which proves that there is no turns the case argument. There's also no turns the case argument extending the 2 and/or terminal impact claims that implicate the AF, which means that the AF can be a good idea plus all of their terminal impacts. But Julia and I are not the questions. Whether our advocacy of it was good in this particular instance, even if it wasn't, our opening to futurity is not just tied down to our advocacy. The Fridge evidence says that democracies are self-correcting, which also means there's no risk that they turn any portion of the case because they're radically open to futurity. Now, the overview sheet of paper, he says the middle passage of the first example as an example of slavery that may be true, but the AF resists the way in which that is a closure of the political by being radically pessimist. Only their blippy extension of what alternative would actually do means that they link to the move seed the political dissent, which is not mentioned whatsoever in the 2 and R. There is only a risk that the permutation maintains the possibility of using the state by being radically open. We don't think the state is the end-all be-all, but we think it has to be a part of our toolbox, or else we will succumb to an unwillingness to engage the world. Maybe it's not about us, but even if we are bad, keeping in mind the fact that black bodies need to be able to engage the state too. If we win the thesis of the move evidence and the thesis of the fact that civil society could theoretically be engaged in the future, the result of that is that you have to vote for the permutation because the move evidence says that they shut down engagement because of the rebuilding by the forces of life. Pessimism was bad. That was above.
The carbon pragmatism being accessible is, I think, the Gord evidence.
The Gord evidence from the 2NC says it's absolutely accessible, which is the support of the arguments I made above. There's no comparative analysis in the neg speech as to why it's not accessible, which means you should defer to the permutation because it keeps alive the possibility of accessibility. But if they're right, if it's not accessible, the end result of that will be the end of that public sphere as for the Doty evidence, which means there's only a risk that you vote AF, which is sort of like try or die frame. The disclosure argument. Our argument is not that we should never disclose when breaking new affirmatives, which means that there is no possibility that they can prove that people of color cannot engage as we open up a weak public sphere to more accessibility when individuals who are concerned can get together and have a discussion. The DSRB evidence absolutely flows our way on this question because we do not have a solvency advocate for the actual action of the plan text. It's a conceded argument, whereas they absolutely do for their construction because it works it links to both of us, and at best, it's a reason why you should not vote on the argument that disclosure is good. We want to win the debate, right? It's not a justification of whiteness, it's a justification for why we should be allowed to participate at all. It's not a secret, which means their evidence is not applicable. Julia also says in the 1AR that if they had asked for the plan text after we told them that it was the new app, we would have given it to them. But guess what? They did not, which means that we could not predict this particular argument. If we knew that this was an example of whiteness because they told us so before the round, we would have changed the disclosure to this. So worse, it's not a voting issue. It's just a source of defense. The permutation probably results because they once again conceded the radical openness argument. Now the case debate, a lot of this was above, but they Safel putting that floating pick, that was above. Wilderson is radically pessimistic. You have said that white individuals can never advocate in a not-for debate, which means that there's no risk that the floating pick could have solved because it links to those other 2 dissets that they were going for. It's just in a double bind. The app's probably better than the permutation results that they say you should use own advocacy. That would link to their whiteness argument. It's just a direct contradiction. The pragmatism question was about the slave can absolutely be concluded. Now the not-for debate there, how advanced method which fundamentally precludes us and most of the people in the debate community from witnessing this debate, from engaging. If you buy the claims of their not-for evidence, we are not an attempt to profit from their struggle to be us or the struggle of migrants. The Chow evidence assumes that we closet ourselves with migrants. We're just an attempt to do what we can do in this particular instance. Means our affirmation of our whiteness is fundamentally better to alleviate suffering. Humane borders can still be good because that's the status quo program was good, which they've not contested. Is white acting on other individuals. Second, the notion of a gift outlined in the Doty evidence is a term, a radical form of gift giving that expects nothing in return because the water is left anonymously and that when use is not controlled, which means there's no possibility of an impact to these whiteness arguments.
Hey, Charles. I love you,
What's up, Charles? Can you hear me?
Carlito. Wait, I'm alright too.
Yeah,
How do you spell that?
You should check out this now for like identity team at some point.
Yeah, we had one too.
Yeah, actually it's really fun.
Really?
Wait, why did you right here? No, we just broke this.
Oh, this one.
It's on the delay, so you're not gonna see it.
The law is like means that there's this government permitting issue with NGOs giving just like free markets and permits. And so we always get our cards by how this is the most ethical thing ever is to provide a little bit of issue. And sometimes it just by just we should never shut down any possible. Yes, like the one says there's supposed to be
Yes.
Yeah, I did that a long time ago. Hold on.
That kid that LM went for this last round.
DSRB Bobo.
Cold. And then there's a card. There's one is 97. There's sitting.
Yeah.
So there's two ignited cards. Why do you want them all?
Yeah.
In the order.
Good old Noel.
Excuse me.
Chow. Well, there's two Chows.
I'll get my cards.
Thanks.
Low. So like openness. I don't know if it is already Tony or not. If not, then in addition to that, I would like to call in Latifa. And then I think it's the public sphere Kurosawa.
Yeah, I had to get cards.
Do you want the extension of the ball? I don't even know the name.
I know.
Something about pragmatism, accessibility.
In what medium would you like those things?
Did you?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Did you say one operator, or did you just say just the ignitive?
I don't know.
What my negatives.
Like, would you like one on a flash drive?
Flash drive's fine.
Okay,
I got one.
Thank you.
No, because
I know, yeah. They've got the flash drive, so once they're done, they'll just give it to you.
Okay.
They're on there too.
Okay, thank
Thanks.
you. Yeah, because I'm like, this is all I was like, oh.
This just includes the
Dang.
cool.
She ain't even trying to hide her.
Yeah, he told me. He really freaked out with the returns when he
It's not have they all even ended yet?
I didn't hardly do the one EC.
They don't do flash drive?
This is 1AC, so.
So have y'all done flash drive?
What is openness?
It's the other card about democracy. It's not.
Julian Charles says what's up. He said, Julian said he loves you.
We have no internet at the moment.
He said he loves you more.
I could as soon as this computer starts working.
Okay, thank you.
And then, like, are you saying you would upload it to our wiki or like?
Did you see it?
Oh no, just bring it. Yeah, he's on it.
Have you distributed
That's
cards
what
to folks?
you see.
Okay. So I am going to go ahead and when you're done, you come out and say hi, and we can talk about the app that.
Without it.
And
And he walks in with his
But that was so
Okay,
long
so
ago.
That was like
Have you seen what?
Okay, well,
it's now 9.
The way the hunger was.
I came out in my one and I was not
Did you get the child evidence?
Yes.
Take up the stuff at
And you
Yeah,
got
I was
the-
eating here, you want an
for all the other evidence?
Were you in here?
Huh?
No, you weren't
Okay,
in here.
do you want any of the
No,
2AC stuff? Everything I said
It
was
was
in charge before I went in.
That was like 10 minutes ago.
Just get all.
I do apologize.
Yes. Oh, you want all the cards?
Yeah, just give me everything you have.
Okay.
And then DJ.
Thank you. Hey, you brought here is y'all's flash drive. Do you have Mars?
They make you feel better, man.
Yes, we do.
Trade you.
Where's Christopher Randall?
Detroit?
I don't know.
Because he asked about your code later. Yeah, he asked me where it was.
Oh, I took him. He went with
Okay.
That's all. The white six. You took him?
I apologize. He said he was hungry. He's like, Tupac, please let us in. I was like, alright, we going to Chipotle. I didn't want to go to Chipotle.
Okay, let me get this for
Did y'all just finish?
Sorry, it might be a little less doing judges.
So, we also have the Jody,
Give me one moment. You said Jody?
Yeah.
And then
Brar, Ball.
Like 10 degrees colder right here than I
Okay, do you need any of the like radical openness cards?
Hold on one second.
And can I'm not sure what he asked for, but probably similar, but the Chow evidence, the Negation evidence, the Reaffirming evidence, and I think it's like Baker.
Is this the first?
Yes.
Okay. Chow, Ignative, the both Ignative cards are on flashers already.
Okay.
It is saved as one error.
Okay. I think for now.
We're all done.
Yeah.
Just to clarify, you're not in need of the May evidence about solidarity?
and these have been Baker, so I'm trying to get
Okay, perfect. The first judge who came over here was named Toby, right?
I just called it George Colt's
This is Steven.
whatever that
Well, here's his
Paul.
first drive.
Paul.
Paul.
That's his flasher.
That's his flash drive, and he wants it once y'all put this up.
Okay, so what is...
The second person was Alex Miles, who wants the whole 1AC and all the 2AC cards.
Okay, that's more complicated than this one. So okay, so that one is...
Dodie Fogg.
Wait, whose flash drive is this? Which yours?
Paul Johnson. That's
Paul.
Oh, this is
Paul
Paul.
Johnson.
It's Paul's, and he wants you to put your cards on there in addition, because we already put our cards on there, and then put it at a C, and he will take it.
Did you get Paul Johnson? A flash drive already? Paul Johnson?
No, he wasn't in here. Like, we were trying to do this.
Okay, you wanted Wooderson, Bobo.
I just wanted everything you accepted this year.
Okay, so maybe it was him.
Yes, he wants Baker and
Baker, Wooderson, Bobo. Somebody
And
specific
Shadera.
asked
She
for
wants to use
he wants DSRB and Baker.
Okay, so it has to be
Yes.
him. So is this Paul's flash drive?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, we're gonna take it.
I need to make my
I mean, honestly, if he's just gonna take everything, you could just give me that same document and I'll sort through it.
Alright. Are you flashing? You got all the 3 stocks up? No, I'll do
Maybe
it.
you should get that. So capable of flying the sandwich, you can't even keep track of that. I can't remember you. It's sad. Probably.
Okay, I can deal with some of these.
Just put it on one first.
Yes.
You got all the speeches?
I got all my speeches. I don't have too many.
I have all the speeches up. I'm gonna put them all into one doc like I did.
Alright, but the card at the bottom, the 1 and 2, we put in order.
Okay.
It's marked at specious conceptions of black identity.
Sweet.
So you're doing.
You said what?
I mean, actually, do you hear that every day?
He also asks for.
Mm-hmm.
You got one Jody Bob for move.
Okay,
William.
Jody?
Yes. Move.
Oh, we don't know. We're still
Did you get William and Frisch? Perfect. That's it.
I think this is what I had to do was like refresh it, go back, and then like they can watch it.
Mm-hmm.
What was it?
Yes.
This is the DPT.
Yeah.
Judge called here.
What do you need now?
And then like the last document is the whole 1AC and
The whole IC and all the stuff in it.
Yes. Okay, you're gonna have to tell me which cards. I'm not supposed to cruise around with this.
Yeah, I want to go over there. Oh, wait, no. Look, what was that? Talk to you about that round. I want to wait to hear. Listen.
Well, no, it's not.
It's important. Just hold on.
Is this Kane?
So you got the whole IC?
No, that's. I think that's Christmas.
May 8th.
On here is on native speeches.
have what
Sorry.
No,
does this have?
No. Yeah, we could use it back. He wants more cards than you. Thank you. May 8 is marked as developed.
This is G to G?
Yes. Also, if you want, all of the speech docs are on that flash drive that they have. Cool.
Here's all.
That's what I'm saying. I'm like this. You know everybody in your class who's the same set up against me. And I'm like, it's probably all the same judges. Anyway, based on the arguments that were made. And I was like, so that's just coming out of the class. He was like, but, I mean, you know, I'm like, like, I want them to tell me no. I want them to tell me no. And they be engineering just as easy. You know, we should be able to put each other's on the side. Why? I don't know if that, like, why? Like, why? Why is it necessary? You know me, I'm just good. I don't know why.
Yeah.
One, why?
I've heard no two things.
Two,
You just have some nerves.
Yeah, you got. Did you drink that Gatorade or whatever?
This is about to be.
Oh, we get it then. Okay. All right. Well, if you need anything.
Yeah, my bad.
I mean, we just finished up with getting.
I'm gonna go see.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, we still got this left. That's half green tea. Green tea and lemonade. Give you a little caffeine, but not too much.
Sorry about that. Call still one.
That's fine. That's fine.
No.
No.
I was sending you a picture.
No.
I was sending you a picture.
Since you don't work an app that I don't think will be against us, or if they do, if you heard about it, it's very good. So chat release from Cuba, it made it, I guess this was an app that was partially that was part of the company. It's not really, okay, well, United Fruit Company was colonialist and worked to those spots to Latin America. This has something to do with that, but mostly it's just like the major point is debt relief to Cuba and being some like.
So can I interrupt you? I forgot that guy wanted to one EC. We have another flash drive though.
Okay, he's on.
Okay, I'm listening. We'll
Saw him the other day and I was like, yes, last
They were, yeah. Possible that if it's you that you read it, they would just like take them, you know, just be like it's historical investigation for the United States company, and the like they make money on everything like dealing with colonial stuff.
We're locked out.
Oh, that's fair. We are locked out against them. Might
Against Centennial?
yeah. And we beat them when we were neg on the ballot case, so we're locked out. Sorry, I'm kind of happy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Then never mind.
Sorry, we should have told you that earlier.
That's okay. Okay, so
Clear.
they Kenya was fairly sure that if it gets out, they would just say they would say like some like other sort of stuff or whatever.
I was like, why are you voting?
It's just kind of like the goal he thinks. I'll just kind of say that. We can make a decision on which app.
But I need to write a paper. I'm still eating for
This apple loses as soon
Oh,
as
it's just like not even at all close enough. Okay, so fair enough.
we might be another spell for con.
Okay.
It's all the stuff we just talked about before.
But remember, she had a bad dream. She has. She could lose last night. I was shot of
Okay.
as actually not indistinct from the impact claim that's going on here at this argument, because it's about the production of scholarship. And I think that this argument that they make about how the affirmative they have is actually between what it means if there are offensive elements that are going on in various parts of the flow. They may impact some of these different arguments. So, right, if the scholarship that they're doing, right, is beneficial and productive qua the advantage that they have, then how am I supposed to weigh that against the procedure, the access to this argument, right? I mean, Stephen's discussion of it as procedural is kind of interesting because I sort of thought, well, what is the terminal impact of this argument? I'm not sure that you can disarticulate it or disconnect it from the other impacts that are going on in the debate. And so I think if there had been trenchant analysis for why that particular thing was so bad in and of itself compared to the good thing that the affirmative did. What's that? Well, that presumes that the affirmative did not do something good. Smorgasbord of arguments, right? Many of which I think have a lot of potential, but a lot of that potential I think lays fallow because you're kind of going for so much stuff. Part of the debate, the rather more substantive debate, that in this debate you have not one that the way that they invoke or call upon civil society is an invocation of civil society that reinscribes the problems at the heart of civil society. Right? I think that the way that the constitution of the weak public sphere that their Kurosawa evidence talks about means that it's an acknowledgement that the way that community is built through exclusions, and it's a process that's closed off. And the marking of that exclusions, for example, with regards to, say, the Coates DA, or maybe the Coles DA, is to say, look, the problem with white saviorism is when white saviorism occurs at an opportunity cost with a recognition or a reflection about the bad things that we also do. Their argument about the openness of the process of democracy is that openness or reflexivity about that process allows us to mark that the thing we do is not, right, infinitely good, makes us totally awesome, right, but instead, right, marks both the limitations but also moments where things can get a little better. And ours says might help you because if it's true that they're in that position and it's true that the constitution of a weak civil society might do good for them, then that's to me a pretty substantial offensive argument about why weighing. If there was a comparison between those competing internal links, right, to that impact, then I think it's very possible that you're cooking with gas. But there's so much going on that I think it's hard for any of the darts to kind of stick to the board.
The ballot and said even if we lose that role of the ballot here, that openness and the idea, because I think both sides are kind of weak on whether or not social death is true, whether or not the tenets underlying Wilderson's theories are true, which is, kind of symptomatic of both sides going for too much. So I kind of evaluated that to debate through, since the AF has kind of made a meta-level framing argument about why openness is good, that was how I filtered through that, so I kind of resolved that in the favor of the affirmative. The net benefit to the AF is that the state is key to solve the AF. Like, the floating pick argument does make sense, except for that their Doty evidence is, like, really phenomenally fantastic to all of the kind of solvency arguments the affirmative is making in the context of democracy to come and openness and in the context of, the water stuff business that the affirmative is about. So I don't think that the pick is able to resolve it. And the alternative in the 2NR, pessimism, is just a little bit too light to resolve the case. The openness thing I said above, so a couple case things. Yes, what specifically? We need to be open to the idea that civil society can be not necessarily and always ahistorically anti-black. And I think the fact that y'all haven't decisively proven that anti-blackness is an ontological condition because of what I was saying above is a reason I think that frame is actually conducive to making this decision.
So they'll have to win that civil society is always bad in order for it to be bad for black people?
No, not that civil society is always bad. I don't think you decisively won that it's always bad for black people.
Alright, I'm not trying to reproduce debate, but I want to know whether two that voted for the affirmative resolve the Nopper and Tower debate on the case.
Oh, yeah, I was about to get to that. So the case arguments, I think you have the reformism DA, this was mostly explained by the openness stuff I was saying above. I think their evidence on why pragmatism is accessible is pretty good. And the permutation is not solely reformism because it's one step in a broader spectrum. The ethics bad begs the question of whether or not social death is true.
Can I stop you there?
Yeah, sure.
The social death debate wasn't never resolved.
I said it was not debated decisively enough on either side in the social death context alone, so I viewed it through the lens of openness since that was the only frame through which both sides gave me to evaluate that. Other case arguments, because like, Chow was like, you as somebody trying to renounce their power, and then your other argument is that they said they're white and didn't renounce their whiteness and renounce their power. So these case arguments, I think that they're a little bit in tension, so I think it's just easier for me to resolve them in the favor of the affirmative when they say that we don't expect anything back from this gift. The net reason the affirmative is good is because of the creation of the weak public sphere in the education or whatever. Sorry, you have a question?
No,
okay.
I didn't understand exactly what you meant. I didn't hear an answer in the 1 AR, so I wanted to know where you pulled that from.
To which thing? I'm sorry.
To answering the not bringing child specifically, like, or also the Cole evidence to talk about the white censorship that came from the 2AC. Like, I didn't hear an answer there, and I wanted to know where you drew that from in your decision.
When they're talking about the development of a weak public sphere and portable skills or whatever that this debate can give us, I think they're saying this is not a version of white saviorship. It's a pragmatic discussion about what we can do to alleviate tangible suffering and give a gift that we don't expect anything in return for. And I think that was. Well, I agree. If you had made that link argument, I would probably C versus the 2AR on this. I probably would have voted negative, but I just thought that I had in the 2AR. So given that I resolved that openness was a good thing, I don't think y'all ever really substantively engaged the claim in the 2NR that secrecy begs the question of whether or not openness is good. And I do kind of agree with Paul that like the link defense arg that y'all didn't ask.
Can you elaborate on that?
Excuse me?
Secrecy begs the question of whether or not openness is good. Aren't secrets bad?
In the block, y'all said that disclosure is a prerequisite to engagement with openness, but didn't extend that argument in the 2NR. So the affirmative, extended their argument that your mandate that we disclose is a closure to unpredictability, and I don't necessarily think that argument is true in the face of the arguments you made previously, but the AF said it and y'all didn't respond.
Okay, well that's fine. I have a simple question. If the 2NR is just necessarily saying that at best the disclosure argument proves that there's not a form of solidarity in D1AC because they don't even disclose their policy to the people that they couldn't send solidarity with, how does the 1AC create this new political?
Is